partly because the budget will not stretch to a meal on the Monday. Also, we finished quite late on the Monday. I couldn't imagine conveners only arriving or judges only arriving at 5, for example. So we actually doing the whole of Expo judging on one day, which means this online briefing was necessary, and we'll probably be using this format anyway in future. Thank you very much. So could you please put your questions in the chat and somebody will answer them, rather than hands up, and I'd like to get the flow of the whole thing going. So let's go. And now I'm stuck. Lyndon, help. I won't get this thing moving. Peter, I'm not getting it moving. Let's just try again. Let's just see if I can get it to work this time. I am absolutely stuck. Sorry, everybody.
Pressing enter.
I'm pressing. It's still not moving, Peter.
And
oh, there we go. Sorry, I had to just be a little bit more enthusiastic with my pressing enter. Right, everybody, I'm starting with the judging team. So that's me, Olga. You know me. The chief judges, some of them are here: Mandy, Brandon, Norman, Natasha, David, and Zaid. Mandy is the chief of the chief judges this year. They just have a rotating head of the panel. And they are the group that standardizes the results and decides on some of the awards and the ISF finalists. But they are an incredibly effective group, keeping us all in line. ICRA and the conveners, that's everybody else who's here today. Thank you so much for coming and just picking up tips and so on. The category judges, I'm sorry, never got round to sending any details out today. Tomorrow early, I'll start with telling you who your judges are and what your projects are. And then we'll talk about that. Peter and Frank are here. They are going to be doing the results process with you, and also just talking about a few other things. And then here are the dream team. Yay! So you know me, and next to me is Elsa, Ikra there, then Sue-Ann and Zuki, and then Peter and Frank. And Ikra and Frank, of course, are alumna and alumnus, and it's wonderful to have them on the judging team. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the program. I think it's very clear, but let's have a look, and then Ikra will take over with quite a lot of other things, then Peter, and then I'll finish off. So we would like the judges there early. Now, with the Rondebosch traffic, it does mean leaving home early, unless you absolutely are very close by. Even me, and I live close by, I will leave home quite early to get through Rondebosch to UCT. I did send the parking ticket today on the convener group. So if you could forward that to the judges when you get their WhatsApp groups and so on going. Then, like last year, we can't have any refreshments downstairs. We have to go up to the urn, the refreshment station. I've got a slightly different way of doing it this year, and we'll tell you more there. And then can you see by 8:30, we'd like all the sheets done, the NDA and so on done, so that they are in place before prejudging occurs. Then at 8:30, a very quick briefing. I'm actually cutting the briefing down to very, very little, because you're going to be communicating with your judges this week. And it will be the one pager I'll show you right at the end, and then it's allocating projects to judges. Now, we've got an enormous number of judges, but every day there are 2 or 3 that withdraw. So while I send you a very big list, you might find that, well, I've tried to allocate as many judges as possible to the categories. You might find that by the time Monday or Tuesday comes, there will be a, tail off of the numbers. And obviously, when you are with the judges, please check for conflict of interest. Now, we have included a few teachers this year. If they were selectors, I gave them the option of becoming judges because I thought, well, they've actually started the assessment process. And so there are some teachers, but some people might have been mentors to some schools. And so we want the conflict of interest. Then there's quite a lot of time for prejudging on their own. And we're initially thinking of judge pairs, but there might be instances where there are 3 judges per project. That again depends on who arrives on Tuesday. And so you might be spending quite a lot of time, before 8:30, so before 9, moving judges around and so on. Then the big thing is to get the judges' ethics reports back to us as soon as possible. So I think the judges would give you, the conveners, the judges' ethics report. You could fill in the scores. Peter will show you, and then give us the judges' ethics report, and we can follow up as soon as possible with especially the severe problems. Then there is lunch on the benches above Hall 2, and then they will meet you. Now, there's quite a big time for lunch, but they'll meet you just to check interviews before the learners arrive. Thank you, Peter, for your idea. And then it's very similar to last year. The 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and all the computer science learners must arrive by 1 o'clock. So we want the computer science learners to have much longer interviews because of their, they've got to show their programs, their coding, and so on. So even the seniors will come early. Then they will get their lunch and there'll be an official opening. And then by 1:30, the learners should be at their projects ready for you to start the interview process. And could I please remind you to remind the judges on your own? I was looking at some other expos in the other parts of the country, and they're like 2 judges with a tiny little child, and I would be quite intimidated by 2 people coming to talk to me. So let's keep it that there's 1 judge at a time doing interviews, and complete the assessment sheets, away from them. Then they leave and you go back to the judging room with the judges and try and get those primary and junior results finished. So actually hand the sheets in, get the spreadsheets in, Peter will explain, and make sure that grade 6, 7, 8, 9 are done. That takes the pressure off much later. It also means the chief judges will start looking at their results. Now, obviously, the handing in of the assessment sheets is a process where we check that everything's added up and that it's entered correctly so that there's no room for error. Then the seniors come in and they have their own opening ceremony, and our Deputy Vice Chancellor, who's here tonight, will be doing the official opening. I'm not sure if the mayor is coming to do a short speech as well at that time, because he is coming to judge the senior students as well. And then for 2 hours, the next set of interviews take place. Now, obviously, everybody's now going to be itching to go. So please make absolutely certain that the senior results are done very carefully and they come in very carefully. I imagine the smaller categories will be done quite quickly, but let's make really certain that the results are as well done. And then right at the end, there will be a light supper, and there is a certificate and hopefully a gift for the judges. And please remind them, non-disclosure, just while they're at it, in case they say something in front of somebody by mistake. Over to you, Ikra.
Thank you so much, Olga. Good evening, everyone. I'm basically just going to touch on like your role as a convener and how it pertains to Expo in Cape Town of 2025. Most importantly, just to remind everyone that the reason we have conveners is so that us as a committee can make sure that this expo runs smoothly and we don't have to run for judges for everything, and we have our conveners that we can rely on. So, first of all, and with the judging process, I think the most important thing that we need to keep in mind is that all our judges understand how the pre-judging and how the interviews work.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we have quite a few new judges this year, and what I would recommend even is to take maybe like take the first your new judge and take them to their first project that they're going to pre-judge and slowly walk them through the process. Obviously, not interfering with how they score their projects, but just to remind them how it goes. I assume that all the judges have watched and attended the judging training, but obviously, people do forget a lot of things, common nature and all. And then I would say you also should understand that the face-to-face judging in terms of the interviews, like Olga mentioned, we cannot have like two people, two judges standing for a learner, and make sure that they ask appropriate questions, make sure that there's confidentiality, especially with the judges' sheets. We cannot be having judges basically show the results to the learners, because then if we put it in perspective, if a learner were to accidentally see their marks and see that, oh, I achieved a silver, and then the chief judges actually see that their final is like a bronze, that would cause a big issue, be very inappropriate. Um, and then I would also say that with the types of assessment sheets in the previous years, we had judges who were allowed to see what type of assessment sheets would be appropriate. This year, we want them to stick to the appropriate assessment sheets that they were given and they were assigned, because all learners were told to say what kind of project they have. Um, then also with the questions for the judges, what I would recommend is liaising with the subcommittee in case you have any issues with the judges themselves. And with the discussion of results, I would say just tabling all of the meetings with the judges and all, and what will happen with the finalizing of results. What else I would write? I'm sorry, just give me a second. I just lost my notes. Yes, one thing I'd also like to mention is with the chairing of the discussion of the results. At the end of all of the interviews, the judges' sheet would have been done by each of the individual judges, and each of the judges would have each project would have two judges at minimum, and the final results that would be the agreed upon result between the two judges would be discussed after the interviews have concluded. And what's very important is that we make sure that the judges do not tamper with their personal marks that they have given to the projects. What I mean by that is if, for example, one judge has a silver, one judge gave a bronze medal, then we cannot have them going to each and every single section, like their results or the introduction, and changing their marks. We just would like them to discuss the agreed upon mark. That also saves time, and it also just helps with making sure that everything is confidential and nothing is tampered with in terms of the marking process. It also makes the chief judge's job very easy to see as well. Okay, and the judge's certificates is also very important. You as a convener have to make sure that each of the judges get the certificates, because I know that a lot of students and a lot of academics come and would like certification, and we cannot be having judges running after us as to the committee saying that they didn't get a certificate and things, and we have the conveners saying that they forgot or something. So that's also very, very important. Thank you, Olga. Next slide, please. Okay, so convening at Cape Town Expo in 2025. We have a few changes. For starters, in the previous years, you would meet your judges on the day. That would take a lot of time in terms of the briefing in the beginning. So we will be sending you a list, the contact list of all your judges in your category. This is highly confidential. Please, please, please do not distribute the judges' contact numbers anywhere. What I would recommend is to email your judges asking them if they could join your WhatsApp group and then creating a group with them, either asking them for their WhatsApp number or creating a group and sending a link in the email. Thereafter, you could just communicate with them regularly, try to check your messages once a day at least, because there will be a lot of questions. I know there's a lot of new judges and some of them tend to be very nervous, especially when it's their first time. So just any queries, any questions they have, any issues, especially if there are any issues, please address it immediately. You can email Olga or Elsa Marie James at the email, thejudgesctexpo@gmail.com. And then before Expo, like I said, the queries and challenges should be addressed. So when it comes to Expo, we cannot be having people having issues on the day that were possibly addressed immediately, and then the judges, and then the conveners just did not inform us. Because those who are returning conveners know it tends to get very busy. And what I would say at Expo itself, you need to make sure that each project gets judged by a minimum of 2 projects. If there's a huge discrepancy, you get judged by, you as a convener can be the 3rd judge. In the previous years, we would have the conveners complain that they didn't have much to do. So this year, we have the possibility of being a 3rd judge, especially because we do have a lot of big differences in marks, more than you'd expect. What else I would also say is, as a convener, in the previous years, you wouldn't really know much about your category and the projects in your category. But this year, while the pre-judging is happening, we'd recommend, actually not even recommend, we definitely want you to just read over all the projects in your category. Not obviously while a judge is busy doing it, but if someone is not busy at that project, take time and just read over what the project's about, just so that you have an idea. So come later when a judge has a question like, this project didn't have XYZ, you'll know exactly what the judge is talking about and what the issue really is. And then the conveners will be judging projects themselves when it comes to the 3rd issue, the discrepancy of needing a 3rd judge, which is why it's very, very important to read over all the projects. Obviously, you will possibly miss out on the interview process, but we all know that the bulk of the project, the bulk of the scoring isn't really the interview, it's mostly the pre-judging. So very, very important. And then lastly, please, please, please bring your own laptop, lead, and multi-plug. We have had issues in the past where conveners didn't have any devices with them. It's very important for the results and the collection of results, which Peter will touch on. Thank you so much.
Ikra, I didn't mind doing this. So every judge was sent the judge's manual. And please, a lot of the questions are going to be answered by the manual, which we've written over several years. Please, if they say 2024, that's the most recent version. Okay, it's not going to be redone every year because it's actually been worked on for many years. These are the 4 forms that the judges will need to sign. But let's go through them. The Code of Conduct, the Pledge, and the NDA, the Non-Disclosure Agreement, everybody must sign all those. The conflict of interest only needs to be signed by the judges who have a conflict. In other words, they've mentored a learner, or they've taught a learner or learners, but they must name which learners they are and which school they're from. because there's nothing worse, and you don't even know which category that is. There's nothing worse when you see the conflict form and you don't know who's who. So try and get more details on the conflict of interest form. Just to go over again what we expect to see. So the different documents, the report should be separate to the Expo official documents admin file. And the reason we're showing that is, of course, the abstract, the research plan, and the ethics letters are in that file. And I'll point out why. Then there should be the journal, the poster, the prototype or model in the engineering projects, but there could be a model in another project, the computer for the computer science project, and possibly in the social sciences project, an appendix file full of surveys. So that's what you expect to see. So, Ikra, do you want to do this or should I do it?
I'm happy to do that.
Please do. Please do.
Okay, so with the prejudging, with the judging day, sorry, we start off with prejudging in the morning. The first, more than anything, just make sure that each project will have their own learners. Some projects won't pitch up, unfortunately, which is very, very sad. But you need, during the prejudging, just make sure that each of the judges have their 76 marks assessed, done, and in. Do it, then you must make sure that the judges do them on their own. They can ask us, the conveners, they can ask us for help with anything they're unsure of, like how to mark something, how strictly to mark something, because a lot of times we do have judges that are academics, and sometimes academics, I know some of them are in the chat right now, but some of them don't remember that we are working with learners and we cannot expect things that are at tertiary level. So just, that's also something important that you should remind your judges about as well, that we are dealing with learners at the end of the day. So we need to be very sensitive. Yeah, so just make sure prejudging, all those 76 marks are in. Once the prejudging is done, we cannot be going back and tampering too much with those marks. With the interview itself, you do it on your own. Some judges will need only 10 minutes, some judges will need 15 minutes, but we will have an allocated time, and it will be split accordingly. You as the convener can actually recommend how much time someone should use. Like for example, physics or something will have only 2 judges because it's not that many. So it just depends on your category as a convener with splitting up the time. Often during interviews, you'll see that the judges realize that the learner actually knows more than what they've written, and they are allowed to fix and adjust accordingly, just to get more clarity. So the interview part is mostly to just get more clarity and find out if the learner actually knows what's going on with their project. And then for the assessment itself, the finalizing after the interviews, just make sure the final score is done. And let me reiterate, with the final score, we should not have judges comparing their specific marks, the line by line, none of that. We just need the final score discussion of what you think the overall mark should be. And very important, we do not want judges averaging out the marks. We want an actual discussion happening of what they think the final mark should be. So nothing of, okay, 80 and then 60 and then average it out and divide it by 2. None of that. We please, as conveners, make sure that they have discussions going on. And then the convener and the category team will conclude. And before letting your judges leave, please double check and triple check all your documents. Make sure everything is filled in, the signing is done, as well as the comment cards and everything. I hope I covered everything in this slide, Olga.
You have, perfect. So here's a nice little flow diagram. Thank you, Lyndon. You can see that after the projects are set up, the project approval team, PDSA means project approval, they actually approve the project for judging. So there's a form on the table that the judges should at least look at, saying, okay, this project is approved. So hopefully we have ironed out all of the issues that's on the Monday afternoon. The Tuesday morning, the judges will be assigned based on who's there. The learners will be interviewed, pre-judging and interviewed. The judges' ethics report we want in as early as possible because it's a separate sheet of paper, so maybe it will be before the interview. Can I just point out that the ethics violations are not discussed in the interview with the learners? Because it looks like you do because of the way the flow diagram goes, but they don't. So what the judges do is they hand in the ethics report to you. Peter will talk more, sorry, and then the ethics report will be given to the expert team, the dream team, and we will keep it. And please tell the judges they don't discuss the violations with the learners. They rather assess the project content. The interview is about the content of the actual project. We've said that, and Chris said that already. And obviously the chief judges, one of their jobs, and unpleasant as it is to look at the severe violations. We have given the teachers multiple opportunities this year to get help about ethics. So the fact that we went through the district expos, I think, clears up most of the ethical issues that might occur or might have occurred, but there might still be one or two creeping in. So I'm hoping there will be very little ethical problems with ethics. Okay, the four, Ikra, do you want to talk this through, the 4 types?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, please do.
Okay, so we have 4 types of assessments, as everyone knows. This is a type of project is very, very different to a category. Someone can have a social science project in a biology category. It doesn't necessarily pertain to each category. Each of the projects will have already been chosen with one of these types. We ask the learners beforehand and the teachers to submit their projects and their project types beforehand. So we cannot be changing that. Unfortunately, it's quite sad, but we cannot be doing that anymore. For the scientific investigation, which is the standard one that everyone knows. Engineering, it's a little different, as you know, that there are prototypes and it comes down to sometimes we will have models, but most of the times we actually will not. It's mostly photos, as these days we'd rather have learners bring in images or videos of their models. So we do not need any models coming in because it tends to be a bit of an issue. Anyways, social science projects, the most important difference is that there are surveys and there's permission for the surveys happening as well. And for the math and theoretical projects, I would say that one of the biggest differences is that we don't really have real life applications, and sometimes you won't even see variables happening. So yeah, just make sure that each of your judges understand the 4 different types of projects and that they're very different to your category. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, you want to carry on?
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, this is just something I spoke about now. Just make sure that we are not allowed to change your type as well as your category this year as well. If something was put in incorrectly, that is unfortunately the school and teachers' fault. It's something we cannot change. Yeah, so we cannot change any of that. Just judge it as is and judge as best as you can, according to the type of project that was given.
Let me carry on, Ikra. Cool. So in the past, we've allowed judges, let's say a computer science project lands up in maths, okay? Then we've allowed judges to consult with a computer science judge, but they still can't take over the whole process. But what I've tried to do, and that's an instance that's happened this year, what looks like a computer science project has landed up in the maths category. I've actually allocated judges who've offered both those options. So it might be easier Okay, let's just look at the judge's ethics report. So there's the space that everything must please be filled in. And when we have the name of the judge, could we please have it in a sort of printed so we can actually read the name? So it's not a signature. Because what I found is sometimes you don't know who filled this form in because you can't read their writing. Then these are all the issues that could possibly happen. It's a two-sided document. And basically, if there's an X on the judge's ethics report, then it's an ethical violation. And depending on the type of violation, right at the bottom of the judge's ethics report, second page, there is this section that must be filled in. It's compulsory, please. So if they're lucky, there are no violations. There could be moderate violations, like part of the introduction seems to be copied. And severe, of course, is things like human testing without permissions and so on. But the severe violation has to have the reason entered, because the severe ones are the ones we must follow up on as early as possible to see, was there a problem? Was there permission letter? So that's why I showed you the admin or expo folder, because the judge, when they're doing the ethics report, must go and look for the permission letter. They must look and see if there was permission from the principal of the school to do a survey, for example. Okay. Or there was permission given for, God forbid, a human testing project, and there was a supervision letter saying that all the testing was done under supervision. Then it doesn't become a severe violation anymore because the permissions were there. So the judges must actually look into that admin folder. Now, if it's not there, then it stays the severe violation, and they must state, please, no permission or supervision letters apparent. Because you see, then we have also evidence, because you won't believe the number of schools that write to you afterwards saying, how come this kid didn't get a medal? And now we're not going into a discussion, but we actually know the reason, that they did human testing. But as I said, there have been multiple opportunities this year for schools to get help with ethics. I'm going to carry on. And then back on the judge's assessment form, there is another section to fill in. So any violations must also be put on the judge's assessment form, please. It's a way of cross-referencing the two sets of information. Also, obviously, if there's ethics and plagiarism violation, it would affect their final result. Now, the improvements and the mentor. We would love the improvements. They are basically almost what's going to come on the comment card that Ikra mentioned. But we would love them to also, the judges, to offer their services. So let's say the judge gives the recommendations. They could write their name carefully and put their email address. That means, let's say this project is actually selected to go to the International Science Fair, well, we know immediately who to ask to help. And then lastly, of course, we do want everything added up correctly. As I said in the judges training, the number of times you go back and you realized adding isn't a strong suit. So there must be a 0 on the 25 little subsections if there's nothing or it's so bad. And then, of course, the adding per little section here. And as Ikra mentioned, parts 1 to 5 is the pre-judging, and then part 6 is the interview. And while they're doing the interview, they can go back and make 1 or 2 mark changes in the pre-judging, but please not like a 20% change. Okay, there's something wrong then with their pre-judging. But let's just do it positively, saying, if suddenly the hypothesis came in the interview, but it wasn't clear in the report, well, then the mark can go up. So also we can tell the judges that if there are things that you find are not clear, that would be the questions they're going to ask. They must write them down. Remember, they'll get their folder with the little exam pad in, and they can write them down. And also those results, those exam pads must come in. Right, over to you, Peter. Thank you.
All right, good evening, folks. My apologies if I sound a bit croaky. I've been struck down with the lurgy that seems to be floating around this part of the world at the moment. We just want to first look at the whole question of artificial intelligence tools and how they fit into plagiarism. Just to say, what I'm using here is taken largely from what is in the judge's manual, which all the judges have been sent, and hopefully they will have read. Also, just to mention that this is probably the newest section of that judge's manual. It was written only about, I think, 2 years ago, but already part of it is out of date. For example, it mentions ChatGPT as if that's the only artificial intelligence tool available, which it might have been at the time. It certainly is not the case now. Also, some of what is in that judging manual, and I will comment on it when we get there, is possibly a little bit unrealistic in the circumstances. Clearly, using artificial intelligence to plagiarize is an unethical practice. I'll put a quote from the judge's manual on the next slide. Here comes the one which I go, yeah, well, no, well, yeah, well, no, fine kind of comment. Judges need to have some knowledge of AI tools. Yes, that might vary. Those judges who are in an academic environment or in a school environment, yes, this is quite possible that you will have encountered the good and the bad of students or learners using AI. Those judges who are from outside the school environment might not be as aware of it. And then we're going to look in the following slides at use and misuse of AI tools, just go through them quickly, and then some suggestions on how you can detect the use of AI tools when you are judging a project. Right, Olga? You can move on. Okay, and this is just a quote. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading it for you, but it just gives a background as to what we're trying to do to ensure that the project is authentic and it has some scientific merit. And it mentions here are some examples of what is acceptable and not acceptable. If we carry on, we'll see what those might be. Okay, these would be acceptable. Using AI to correct your spelling and grammar, troubleshoot a tricky idea, look for alternative views, see what is existing research, and to find out about what for you as the learner are new and difficult concepts. I think those, particularly the first one, we do get a number of learners whose home language is not English, but they're presenting the project in English. And as far as I'm concerned, it would be perfectly in order for them to go and check their spelling and grammar using an AI tool. Right, we can move on. These are no-nos. Using the AI tool to do the research for you or to produce your write-up. Using the AI tool to generate a literature review for you. Any point at which a learner claims the AI-generated content as his or her own is definitely a no-no. And then fabricating data or results using AI. And this particularly becomes a problem in scientific investigations. All right, if we can move on. Now, some red flags. In other words, how do your judges pick up that there is possible AI use? And you need to ask the judges to keep an open mind, because sometimes you can only clear up what you suspect during the course of the interview. I had a learner at a district expo where I spent the first few minutes reading what this learner had written. It was a grade 7 learner. And I was saying, hang, this is amazing. Went on to chat to the learner. And the moment they opened their mouth, I realized this particular person knows exactly what they're talking about. In fact, they know a lot more about it than many grade 10s, 11s, and 12s do. If you spot inconsistent text formatting, that also is a clue that possibly the text has been plagiarized. So something is taken directly from a source on the internet. So it isn't only AI that you would pick up here. You might pick up just regular plagiarism, going onto Google looking for a site and simply copying and pasting a largest chunk of that text into their report. If there are sections of text where the writing style suddenly seems more mature, a lot more polished than the rest of the document, and a good document to compare with is often the research plan, where the opportunity and the tendency to use AI tools is less. If you find the way that research plan is written compared with the way large sections of the report are written, there is a strong suspicion that the learner might have made use of AI. If the learners used complex words or academic language in an inappropriate or incorrect context, this is a huge red flag for you. Earlier versions of ChatGPT especially used to generate completely fictional references. I'm not sure whether ChatGPT has caught up with this and changed it, but it is quite a good way of picking up that AI was used at some point in the project. So if your learners, if your judges, it's worth their while for them to check one or two of the references and make sure that the journal that is referred to in fact exists, or that the article is referred to does in fact exist and was written on the date that's claimed. It is a problem if the learner has not referenced the use of AI, and there's a slide that follows this, which is a little bit about it, and there's more detail in the judge's handbook. And then probably one of the best ways to pick it up, and I'm thinking more particularly of the category that I've worked with, and that's computer science, is the inability of the learner to answer probing questions during the interview. You don't mention anything about suspecting that they used AI, but you can, in the case of a computer science project, take a part of the code and ask the learner to explain what that particular bit of code does. And I have encountered a case where the learner actually ended up talking what was actually a lot of rubbish about the code that they were asked about. All right, if we can move on. And this is just what's required when you use an AI tool: to state the name of the tool used, include a screenshot of the input questions or the prompt that you used, and it needs to be referenced correctly. And the referencing is in the judge's guide as to how it should be done. It's not okay for the learner just to say in the report that they used AI to do X, Y, and Z. You need to go back to the references and make sure that it has in fact been referenced correctly. All right, and then just before we carry on with this, just to say, our inimitable Professor Janssen from Stellenbosch University, responding to a decision by UCT to stop using a AI detection tool, comment was one with which I wholeheartedly agree, is that the AI horse bolted out the stable quite a long time ago. And those of us in academia and school level education are actually busy playing catch up. And the same would also apply to Expo. Right, now, as far as the results are concerned, this is a process that we wanted to start last year, did it slightly differently. What I've done is I've created a Google folder, which I will share the link with all the conveners and the chief judges on Monday. It's called CT Expo 2025 Convener Score Sheets. In that folder, there will be a score sheet for each category. These are spreadsheets. I did them in Excel and then just moved them over to Google. But Google Sheets has improved remarkably since I last had a look at it, which is about a year ago. And there are things that used not to work that are now fully functional. So you should be able to do everything in Google Sheets. You don't need to download it and open it in Excel and then have to remember to upload it again. It has the advantage that the chief judges can access it. If they decide to moderate the scores, we can discuss this with them next week, but they might want to make their changes on this Google Sheet and then let Frank and myself know when everything is finalized so that we can upload to the Expo Access database. Right, if we can have a look at the next slide. This is just a sample of a spreadsheet. It has the first 3 columns are important in terms of that they link into what is in the Access database. You'll notice there that column 3 is the final consensus score. That is where you copy for what is in the final score on the mark sheet, and all the judges in that category should have the same final score written in. Then the learners' names are there. If it's a pair, both learners' names are with the project. And then I've just in the first row for project number 1, given just a sample. This is not real, but here we have a case where Judge 1 gave 20. Judge 2, who is a new judge, gave 50. And at that point, the convener felt that he or she needed to go and judge the project and gave a score of 45. And then on discussion, they agreed on a score of 40. Then a new column, which wasn't there last year, is a column for ethics violations. It's based on a drop-down, and you've got three values there: none, moderate, severe. Now, as the convener, you need to capture the most severe one of your judges. So if the one judge says none, the other one says severe, you need to capture severe, because that project needs to be investigated. Unless on discussion you find that the judge has actually misunderstood and you persuade them to change it first before you capture it here. But you might not have the opportunity to do so. As a convener, I had a judge who rated a project as a severe violation because the learner didn't use Harvard referencing. Now, that quite clearly was an error. That's not a violation at all, never mind a severe one. And then if the project is severe, a little message will pop up in the last column asking you to give a brief description of what the violation is. So it could be just something like human testing, extensive use of AI, or whatever. And then the team, the project assessment team, and the chief judges will have access to this as well, so they can actually see what you have put in here. Right, there are a few rules, unfortunately. If we can move to the next slide. Please do not move or hide any columns. So if you don't have a judge 3, which we've left in just in the event that there might be 3 judges judging that project, if all the judges in your category do turn up, then you might well allocate 3 judges to a project. So don't please go and hide that column away. Please do not delete or hide any of the rows. And if a project has been withdrawn, you simply just leave it blank. On the database, we will renumber the project and put a W after the code, but there probably will not be time to do that before you start working with the spreadsheet on Tuesday. I've mentioned already the convener score is there for you as the convener to go and judge the project if you find there's a big discrepancy between the judges. And then Olga, if you can just press enter for us, please. Okay, that's just what the drop-down looks like when you click on it. And then enter again. We ask you just to remember to give details of any severe violations. I didn't mention it here, but because you're working in Google Drive with Google Sheets, it saves itself. So you just need to wait a few seconds to make sure your last change has been updated, and then you can simply close the spreadsheet and you can be safe in the knowledge that it has in fact been saved. It's like in Microsoft programs where you turn on the autosave option. Google Drive has autosave enabled by default. So if you know how to turn it off, please don't. All right. I think that's all from me. Yes.
Thank you, Peter. So, conveners, what I'm thinking of for the morning of the 19th, I don't think there's going to be a lot of time for me to talk or us to talk a lot. So, what I'm thinking of is a one-pager, which you could either print or WhatsApp with a few reminders. So, just the times, the key times, the places, reminder to sign the pledge, code of conduct, confidentiality, and non-disclosure agreement, obviously, and the conflict of interest. So we had a very successful one-pager with the teachers at the beginning of the year. They literally looked and they saw everything. That's what I'm intending to do. The refreshments process, you can remind them ad nauseam to bring a mug and a bottle of water because they have to bring their own. We just don't have. And then if you've got any ideas of what you want on that one pager, please just let me know. So it literally will be an A4 page. It can be a WhatsApp A4 page, or we can, print a few copies for the table. And that would be almost the briefing. So the briefing will be very short. Hello and welcome. Now you're here. This is what's going to happen. And you will manage the group very much from then on. And I liked what Ikra said, to take the judges, especially the new ones, to a project and actually walk through the process with them. I'm actually seeing most of the judges have put 0 years. A few were selectors this year, but most of them have put no years of judging. So we really are starting from a fairly easy point that you have to take one more step with them and actually look at a project with a judging sheet. Ikra also mentioned that the learners chose their project type this year. That's how the judging sheets will be printed. They'll be printed on project types, but what I'm saying is then both judges must use the same project type assessment form. Not one of them can't go change without discussing it with you. So as Ikra said, we prefer no changes. There's no change of category allowed anyway. And before I forget, Peter says in the physics category, there's a theoretical project, which means that the math theoretical judging sheet will be used and not the scientific one, which is what you expect in the physics category. So, they are there. Peter will be there. Ikra will be there. We'll all have experience with the different types of judging sheets or assessment forms, as they're also known. But the judges must please say, if you say that project is scientific investigation, then they must use that sheet. It's not optional to use that sheet. Okay, and then I was looking at your feedback from last year and I found the sheet, I don't know where it was, saying that the ISF finalists need more time. So what I've thought of doing, firstly, we need mentors. Okay, so we need about 20 mentors to sign up. And as we've done in the past, everybody, we allocate one mentor to a project the whole way through the upgrade process. So we don't jump around and give different people on different dates. So by Friday the 22nd, so Expo finishes on the 20th, the ISF finalists should be confirmed by the 21st. By the 22nd, I'll be emailing the mentors the name and the topic of their project. Now, they may or may not have judged that project. I don't know. What I want to do is I want the kids to give us their report, to email us their report. I haven't got that process quite finished yet, and we would like to send it to the mentors by the 26th of August. Now, the mentors, of course, don't ever electronically talk to the kids. They only talk to the kids face to face. So we'll send the projects and the report, and what I'd like the mentors to do is actually to start commenting on that report and email that back to us. So the date's still being discussed, and I will get it back to the kids so they can work on it before the 5th of September. Because this was a comment made last year that there wasn't enough time for upgrades. So I'm just speeding it up a little bit. On the Friday, the 5th of September, venue unknown, there'll be a face-to-face upgrade. So you'll meet your learner and then talk to them about what they're doing, what they've done, and so on. And that's an opportunity to check all the documents and the poster. At this stage, they might have the old poster. They might not have upgraded the poster yet. They might be working very much on their report. Now, somewhere around the 10th of September, and I'll get that date from Lyndon, they actually have to upload their research plan report and abstract. So there needs to be time. There's a weekend between each of these events to try and finish their project. And then somewhere around the 19th of September, we'll have that very fancy send-off to the judges come, the parents come, everybody comes. And, we rotate between schools. Last year was at Bishop's, and we've had Herschel, we've had Cyprian's. So we'll find another school and we'll go to that event, and that will be the interview experience. And our learners do very well at ISF. So hopefully amongst the conveners, there will be mentors, and amongst some of the experienced judges and even the enthusiastic new judges, there will be mentors. So finally, please make sure that everything's got the judge's name on, printed, please. Full name, not just OPL, because there could be 10 of us, I don't know. Please make sure there are comments written. Very importantly, even though there might be a huge ethics violation, the project must still be assessed. So you might find that the judge has decided to start with the judge's ethics report and has discovered there's human testing without supervision or permission. That project obviously will get the ethics report and we'll flag that, but that project must still be assessed. So that is one of the Expo rules. Please make sure we get lots of lovely mentors to assist the learners. And thank you very, very, very much for being here today. And tomorrow, hopefully, I'll start sending projects. If you've got any suggestions, please email them to judgesctexpo@gmail.com, or you can send them to me, or we can put them on the convener group. Obviously, nice constructive suggestions, please. And thank you very much, everybody. It's been an amazing evening. We've managed it in 1 hour. Just over an hour, which is really great. And I'm looking forward to meeting you on Tuesday morning and Chief Judges on Monday evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Zaid. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Olga.
Thank you. And Peter and Ikra, can you stay? I think Ikra might have gone. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ikra.
Thanks all.
Keep well.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, and see you on Tuesday. Thanks, Stu Ann. I'm hoping that printer is working. So I asked Sue Ann if she could possibly make some more judges' manuals for us. I was thinking of giving one to each convener, a paper version, but let's see how that goes.
Olga, I'm
yes.
only going to the office tomorrow, so hopefully
Yes.
I'll get a chance to print.
Oh, that's so sweet of you, Sue Ann, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm thinking this is actually the way forward. The conveners respond very quickly. Were there any questions? Did anybody notice?
No, there is just a suggestion from Shaheem about adding a drop-down column on the spreadsheet